Hi guys, just recording this on Father's Day, so I've got permission to do a second video for the weekend. So this will go into the backlog. Hopefully we've got a nice little scenario here, one a little bit unusual. So we're playing lengthways across the table, and we were representing an assault by a Prussian brigade, and as I'm sure many of you know, their brigades are of divisional strength. So we've got 3 regiments contributing to this assault. 2 regiments of Landwehr, these are Westphalian Landwehr, 3 battalions in that regiment. We have a 2nd regiment occupying this forward position in this little hamlet, 2 battalions occupying the village itself, and 1 in line in support. And then we've got a regiment of reservists coming up to support them. So we will be fighting all of these units as conscripts or reservists, so the reservists will count as 2nd line, and we do have 1 line battalion in the reservist regiment. And they're fighting against Confederation of the Rhine troops. So we have a large battalion, 2 large battalions of Nassau, and 2 battalions of Berg infantry. These will all be fighting as second rate, and they're supported by 2 regular regiments of French lancers, which I thought would be quite fun. And after all, the Berg had a famous regiment of Berg lancers in their in Napoleon's Guard. But they didn't ever actually fight, I don't believe, with the Berg infantry. Anyway, so we've got a regiment of Confederation of the Rhine troops supported by a brigade of French lancers facing off against 3 regiments of Landwehr and reservists of the Prussians. Let's see how this game goes. Hope you enjoy it. Back with the start of the game. Right, unfortunately for the French, their Berg brigade went hesitant, even though the Nassau are active and are their lancers. We've decided to do them as 3 small brigades each for the general brigade rules, so it gives the French 3 ADCs. For the Prussians, all brigades are active and they got infantry assault off on this Landwehr brigade. The Prussians have initiative. They will move first in turn 1. Alright, we've completed move on first on turn 1. So the Prussian Landwehr that has the infantry assault orders has started moving forward, supported by their skirmish screen. In the village, one of the Landwehr battalions has moved out of the building it was occupying, and the 2nd battalion has moved across the hedge line. The reservists are starting to move up in support, so all the Prussian units are in motion. Over on the French side, one of the Berg infantry, because it was hesitant, wasn't able to move forward, but it was able to change formation. So it moved into column, and it allowed the horse artillery to move up in the gap that it created. And the lancers moved up in support of the horse artillery battery, and the other lancer battalion moved into column to make itself more deployable. The Nassau regiments stayed where they were. Right, that's it. We'll do a little bit of skirmish firing. I think that's all we'll have this turn. And then we'll start turn 2. Charlie has arrived to command the Prussians. To victory, Charlie?
Yeah.
So the Prussians, their objectives is to drive the Nassau and Confederation of the Rhine troops off the table. Unfortunately for the Confederation of the Rhine, the Nassau brigade and the Lancers have gone hesitant this turn, although the Berg infantry are active. Alright, let's see what happens as we do turn 2. Charlie, you've got movement and charges first. Right, so Charlie has moved his Westphalian Landwehr up to the edge of the river. The garrison Westphalians have formed up out of the rearmost building. So this battalion here has formed up this turn. This one has piled out of the building, and the other one's just reached the edge of the river. And Charlie's reservists are also moving down to position as his artillery battery. All right, let's do some firing then, Charlie. You're going to fire your skirmishers at the Nassau skirmish screen.
2 dice.
Yeah. 1 more casualty. That's 1 base lost. That'll be the 3rd casualty on that skirmish screen. Right, I get to fire back. I also get 2 shots. I cause 1 casualty on you, Charlie. That should take you up to 2, I think, on your skirmish screen. Yeah, so no loss of a base for you. Any more shooting from the Prussians? Don't think you have. Alright, I'm going to fire 2 shots against the unformed unit that have piled out the village. I cause 1 casualty against them from my Berg skirmishers that deployed behind that hedge line. That's it for firing. That's the end of turn 2. We'll move on to turn 3. It's not going to be the configuration of the Rhine's Day. 3 1s for my activations, or for my ADCs anyway. Let's see what the activations actually are. So no rerolls for my Berg infantry are active, my Lancers are active, and my Nassau are active. So although I've got the 3 1s, all my brigades are activated. Charlie, what have you done?
So I'm re-rolling these ones.
Yeah.
I put infantry assault with no reroll.
Okay.
No reroll.
Okay, so let's roll with these. They're active, the infantry assault is hesitant, and the reservists can move. All right, we'll mark those up and then we'll roll for it. Dan has deployed his garrison into line and formed up the other ones that came out of the building at the rear. He's moved his reservists up on this flank, and he's just started crossing the river with the Landwehr on the right. For the Confederation troops, we've deployed the Berg infantry into line up against the hedgerow. We've moved our cavalry up to potentially threaten an attack in this direction, and we've deployed some horse artillery as well. I'm not sure whether we'll fire them, but we've deployed them this turn. Otherwise, everything else remains unmoved. Charlie, you to start with firing. What are you going to fire first?
So, skirmishes.
Okay, 2 shots against my skirmish screen. 1 casualty. Okay.
And my volley against them. Against these
Skirmishers. Okay, so that'll be at -2. 11 goes down to a 9.
Still very good.
You are conscripts.
But that doesn't really count because I've got 4.
It counts that you're conscripts, so but you still rolled a 9. So that's 2 casualties on the skirmish screen, and a discipline test, which they pass, but 2 casualties on my skirmish screen.
So
Any more firing?
these skirmishes, do they get 2 or 1 dice?
They get
Two.
2 dice. Yeah, 3 to 4 bases gets 3, -1 for shooting at skirmishes. Nope, no casualties, so you don't get to take off a base. And I think that's it for your shooting.
Yes.
All right, return fire, potentially by the Confederation troops. So 2 shots from the Nassau against the Prussian skirmish screen. That's 1 more casualty. That's 1 base loss against that skirmish screen. 1 shot against the skirmishers in the open. That's 1 casualty against the skirmishers in the open. And we will fire our horse artillery against the skirmish screen that's opposite them. Let's see what we do. This will be at -4, so I'll think twice about that. I don't think we will. Too likely to get a fatigue casualty, so we'll hold off firing the horse artillery this turn. That's it. That's the end of turn 3, and we'll move on with turn 4. Really unlucky for the Prussians and Charlie this turn. He got 3 ADCs, put rerolls on all his brigades, but despite that, 2 of his brigades, most of the ones on his right, went hesitant. This brigade of Landwehr is still active. I got no ADCs again, 2 1s and a 2 this time, but I did manage to activate all my brigades, so somewhat against the odds. The Prussians have all their brigades active, and indeed have initiative for the first time in turn 4. So there's been some reasonably ineffective skirmish fire down here. The Nassau have moved forward slightly. They want to drive the Prussians away from this river line, being across the river. I've deployed my cavalry into columns to give them a bit more flexibility, but they are still technically in a reserve position, so I will have to deploy ADCs if I want to move them through to the front line. Charlie has opened fire with his skirmishers. Not caused any casualties, but he is opening fire with his artillery battery. You're going to fire at the Berg infantry?
The main thing I want to do is try and get bounce through into the skirmishes, because it will go through. It is bounce through because it goes against anything.
Yeah, I suppose it probably does. You roll a 4.
Fatigue casualty. Oh, and the bounce through doesn't even go through.
Yeah, so that's a fatigue casualty, unfortunately, on the Prussian guns. The effort of unlimbering and trying to open fire in the foot artillery battery was difficult to pull off. All right, that's it for firing. That's the end of... We're on turn 4, Charlie. That's the end of turn 4. We'll move on with turn 5. Right, I fired my skirmish screen down here. We didn't cause any casualties. Now moving on to my Berg infantry, volleying the Landwehr for the first time. Wow, we roll an 11. That'll be pretty good. That's a regular volley. That's 4 casualties on the Landwehr and a discipline test. So the discipline test at -1, 8, so they're fine, but they will go up by 4. Okay. We'll check the other Berg battalion, but I think that's out of right. Charlie's fired his artillery battery and caused a casualty against the Nassau. You do actually get a bounce through against the other battalion behind it, Charlie, if you want to roll that, 4, 5 or 6. Yeah, that's another casualty against the Nassau on bounce through. Yeah. All right, and you're going to fire them. Inferior volley and -1 because I'm in cover. What did you roll?
5 is nothing.
Okay, so that'll be a loss of fire discipline.
3 or lowest loss of fire discipline.
Yeah, so that'll be a loss of fire discipline to them. We'll get some smoke. Any more firing, Charlie? What about your skirmishers? You fired them, haven't you? And you caused 2 casualties against me. I think that's it for firing. That's the end of turn 5. The action is starting to get to the decision point of the game. Right, disaster for the French. Again, I put 2 of my ADCs on my cavalry to allow them to drive through the front lines, take up a new position and counterattack. But I failed, so they went hesitant, and both my other brigades went hesitant. Charlie is active with all of his, and indeed the Prussians have initiative. Let's see how their attack keeps on grinding forward this turn. Right, Charlie's done his movement. He's moved the Landwehr brigade up on this flank. The other ones have stayed in position, so it looks like he's going to try and out-volley the Berg infantry. He's opening up with his skirmishers here against the Nassau skirmish screen that moved from the field behind that wooded hedge line. So this will be 2 dice, 1 casualty. Is that a 6 on the other side, Charlie?
6. Yeah.
Okay. Any more firing, Charlie?
It either end horribly or ended brilliantly. If I had my gun at them, it'd be -4 because it's
no, you have to go to the closest threat. I don't think skirmishers on their own. I know you're trying to knock them out for a discipline test.
I never do it. It's just because it's a really bad idea because you're at -4 and you're very likely to get.
I think you have to target the infantry battalions. You can't target a little stream of skirmishers away in the distance. As attractive as that target is.
Okay, I'll put my gun on it. So.
What are you firing at?
Them.
Can you see around the end of your battalion?
Oh no, I'll be firing at them. That's
yeah.
Fine.
What did you roll?
6. That's half a casualty. Casualty. Bounce through. It's a casualty.
Okay. Any other firing?
I'm going to fire a volley against...
Okay, that'll be an inferior volley at -1.
10.
A 10, okay, that becomes a 9. So 9 for an inferior volley is 2 casualties on the Berg and a discipline test. So we'll take their discipline test. We roll a 5, that goes down, that stays as a 5, they simply go unformed, which will help you survive their responding volley. Alright, any more firing? That's it for firing for you? Alright, we will do our responses. I'll fire my skirmish screen against your skirmishers. I think the N1's in the open, so I do think I get 2 dice.
You get 1, it's still skirmishers.
Doesn't do anything. Oh, that's true, yes, I would only get 1, but they didn't do anything. And then an inferior volley across the valley. A 5, I don't think that'll be anything.
-2 because also
I would lose fire discipline if I was a recruit, but I'm not. And then I'm going to fire my artillery battery against your skirmishers at -3. That's a 6, that goes down to a 3. Another fatigue casualties, that's 2 fatigue casualties for firing at skirmishers from my horse artillery. Alright, I'll mark up those casualties, and that's the end of turn 6. Alright, so Charlie's Landwehr are pushing across the river on the left. I have, even though no, I wasn't actually hesitant with the Berg this turn, so I formed one of my Berg battalions into column, which gives space for my lancers to move up to threaten the Landwehr next turn. But obviously I'm doing that in reaction to Charlie's move, so I wasn't able to do a charge this turn. I did get a redeploy order off on my cavalry, so they can move through to the front now through the Berg infantry. So the redeploy order's done. My Hanoverians are hesitant, however, and haven't been able to do any more redeployment. That's it for movement. Charlie again moved his Landwehr up here on the left. The reserve brigade is staying in reserve. That's it. And Charlie, who had initiative this turn? Charlie had initiative, so Charlie, you get to do shooting first. What are you going to start with?
Can I find my guns at these?
Yep, you can. And then try and get some bounce through.
So far then, can I get bounce through it then?
Yep. You get an 8, that's a pretty good result. We thought you were at long range, didn't we, last time?
1.
So that's 1 casualty. Takes them up to 2.
25 inches on this one, so with that...
I'll check to see if you're at effective range. If you were at effective range, that would be 2 casualties on me. Roll your bounce through on the Landwehr, on the Nassau battalion behind. Yep, put another casualty on them. And we'll just check the range. Right, good firing from the Landwehr. Although they didn't do anything against the Berg infantry here, they did unfortunately disorder the lancers that had moved up to the hedge line. So they volleyed them and caused 2 casualties on them. So if I have initiative, I will not be able to charge home. I'm surprised Charlie didn't form him into square. He decided to be brave, stay in line and volley, and that proved a good choice. All right, that's it for Prussian firing. We'll now do some French return fire. We'll first start with my Berg infantry firing at the Landwehr in the river. We roll a 7. For an effective volley is 2 casualties against the Landwehr. We'll fire my Landwehr in column, so this will be half effect. That'll be a 4, so they're regulars, aren't they? Standard would be a loss of fire discipline. So we need to put some smoke in front of my Berg infantry, Charlie. Then we'll fire my horse artillery battery. They're going to fire up over the hedge, and we're going to fire at this Landwehr here. And this will be ball shot, so the skirmish green won't play a role in this one. Okay, another terrible roll for the French. That's a 5. -1 is a 4, probably at effective range. Is no casualties from the gun, but at least it hasn't suffered a discipline test this turn. And I think that's pretty much it. We've got a small unit down here. They could do a volley against the skirmishers, but I think we'll just pull them back next turn. All right, that's it for Confederation of the Rhine firing. We'll move on to turn 8 and the Prussians. Right, we're on turn 9. Devastatingly for the French, as we saw last turn, my cavalry went unformed as a result of that volley from the Landwehr, so they won't be able to charge. So any charges from the Prussians this turn, Charlie? No charges? You're going to keep on just driving forward. All right, let's see if the French are going to do any charges.
I don't think you can.
We might be able to charge this
10
cavalry.
inches. You have to go over the head.
Yeah, I can take a casualty for that.
You have to carry on, and you get past
Right,
the 5
we
guns
are
at
going
close
to
range,
try.
And I'll be able to form square.
We are going to try and charge this unit in the flank
This
with
one?
my cavalry. No, the front one.
This one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll see whether they can do that. I will take a casualty from charging over the hedge at full speed. Let's see if we're in range. So the French horse artillery opened fire and caused a couple of casualties on this leading attacking Landwehr battalion. Both my Berg infantry have now formed column, and I've moved my lancers up to do the passage of lines. They're about to counterattack and crash into these Landwehr. I'm not sure the Landwehr are in a good position. I think I will be able to at least bounce that battalion that's in line. Probably won't do anything against the one that's in square. And down here I formed column with my 2 large Nassau battalions, started pulling the Nassau company back, but it took casualties, failed a discipline test, and has had to retreat, but fortunately not enough to cause a test on the whole brigade. All right, let's start turn 10 and let's roll for ADCs. Rolling for the French. Oh, that's definitely cocked. Even I can't tell that one. That's 2 ADCs for the French, and then for the Prussians we've got 3 ADCs. Okay, Charlie, let's allocate those ADCs and see what happens. Okay, so the French Lancers have done passage of lines and crashed into this attacking Landwehr battalion, and the Landwehr battalion that had managed to form square last turn. Let's see what those charge results turn out being. Right, so first we do a defensive volley from this square because it was formed in the previous turn. They will get one. So let's see what they do. It's a bit half effect. We roll a 7. It's not too bad for an inferior volley as 1 casualty. Half effect unfortunately takes that down to a half. So there's no effect from the defensive fire. Right, let's do the charge resolution. +2 to the Prussians for being in square. +1 to the French for being lancers. The French are 1 morale grade higher, but the Landwehr being in square gives them a bonus. So we ignore that, so this will be a net +1 to the Prussians. Right, the Prussians get a 4, which goes up to a 5. The French get a 7. So this is a -3, but it is against a square. So the cavalry retire and take a casualty, as does the square. So the lancers bounce off on this left-hand assault. So the 2nd Landwehr battalion, because the French are too close, will not have an ability to form square, so they might as well volley, which they will. Oh, they roll pretty well. They roll an 8 for an inferior volley, which is 2 casualties. Just checking. They've only... apparently they've already taken 8 casualties. I will check that. That seems a bit high. Yeah, they had taken 8 casualties. They did take a devastating volley from the Berg infantry. I think it caused 5 or 6 casualties on them, so that unfortunately knocks 2 off this. So that'll cause a further casualty on the charging French cavalry and will have no impact, unfortunately, on the charge result. Right, let's come back and just work out those charge modifiers. Okay, so this one really will show probably the strength of cavalry against raw infantry in line. So this is a +6 modifier, really hampered by both being in line and the number of casualties the Prussians have already taken. And so that's a 17 plays a 5. The cavalry destroy that, overrun that Landwehr battalion. It disintegrates and they get the opportunity to charge on. Now a charge on result I think is 3d6. Let me just check that. Cavalry is 5d6. Alright, 5d6. They can move, so they potentially can go into the reservists in the woods. So we roll a 10, 15-inch further movement for the cavalry, and we'll see where they move to. Alright, so the lancers have crashed across the hedge into the Landwehr battalion, scattered the Prussian skirmish screen, which did evade, fallen back behind that fence line into that building, and then have charged these line infantry of the supporting reserve brigade. So the reserve brigade will get a chance for a volley. This will be at half effect because they're in column, but they were more than 9 inches away. So they do get to respond, but they roll a double 2. There'll be no casualties from the defensive volley. Let's work out this next charge result. Alright, rolling this is +2 to the Prussians. They really benefit from being in column here. Let's see how they do. Yeah, they win. That is 8, 9, 10, plays 3. So the French cavalry lose by 7 and will be thrown back. Alright, at the end of turn 9, the French cavalry is back within its lines. This unit was thrown back by the formed line infantry for the Prussians when they did their follow-on charge and were unable to break them. This one fell back after failing to break the Prussian Landwehr square. There will be a Fulter test on the Landwehr brigade, but in the meantime the reserve brigade is moving up to move through those lines and potentially attack the French position, the Berg position behind the hedge line. And over here the Landwehr are closing in. Now we'll get some artillery fire. We're starting with the Prussians. We'll see how they do as they open up with their artillery battery, and I think they're going to target the Berg infantry battalion in column, and they will get some bounce through against that retreating lancer unit. Alright, let's do their firing as they open up with their medium artillery against the Berg in cover. So this will be a -1 for the Prussians. They roll a 6, that goes to a 5. They get 1 for the bounce through. They do get a bounce through against the cavalry. That will take them up to 5 casualties. And then a 5 at effective range is 1 casualty against the Berg infantry. That takes them up to a 3. That's the Prussian guns fired. We'll now fire the Prussian skirmish screen against the French guns, needing 5s or 6s. Wow, that's pretty good. 2 5s. That takes the French guns up to 3 casualties. I think it's actually 4 because I think they've taken 2 fatigue casualties. And then the skirmish screen will go against the Nassau to their front, but don't cause any casualties against them. That is the Prussian firing done. Now for the Confederation forces, this large battalion will open up. And of course, I forgot to add, there is a casualty dice, which didn't cause anything against the Berg infantry that were fighting in column. Alright, so we've now got a large battalion opening fire against that skirmish screen. Let's see how they do for the Confederation forces. Right, this will be an inferior volley, but with 1 combat dice, because we're a large battalion. We roll an 8, that'll go down to a 6. For an inferior volley is 1 casualty, and our combat dice caused nothing, so that is 1 casualty against that Prussian skirmish screen. We'll fire our French guns. They will open fire against this Landwehr battalion. This will be at -1. We'll see whether it's at close or effective range. Reroll an 8. The hedge will take that down to a 7. If that's at close range, that's 2 casualties in a discipline test. If it's at an effective range, that'll be just 1 casualty. Let's just check that range. Alright, that's it for the Confederation firing. It was indeed at effective range, so that's only 1 casualty against the Landwehr, who are now in a position to start their assaults next turn. We'll see how that goes as we move into turn 10. So first, most important roll of the turn, we do have 2 ADCs, so we've allocated them both to this Landwehr brigade. We roll a 5. That means they will carry on a faltering brigade, even though they're only recruits. They will obey orders, so the Landwehr stay on the table. Good news for the Prussians. Let's roll for the brigades then. So they are active. The right-hand Landwehr brigade is also active, and the reserve brigade, unfortunately for the Prussians, is hesitant. Let's roll the activation for the French. We've got 2 ADCs for the French. We'll put a re-roll on our cavalry because we want to get them formed up, and we will put another one on. Tell you what, we're going to put 2 on the. No, we've taken 4 casualties, so we can't put artillery assault on the guns. So we'll put the other one on the Berg infantry. Right, so the Berg infantry go active. The cavalry, with their re-roll, which is needed, stay hesitant. That's a blow, so the unit that's retreating will stay in retreat status, which is not good. And then the Nassau are active. Alright, so 1 inactive brigade for the French and 1 inactive brigade for the Prussians. Let's see who's got initiative. The French have rolled a 7 against a 5. The French have initiative in turn 10. Alright, first Prussian charge of the turn. So the Landwehr brigade here has charged. It's got flanking and rear support going in against the Nassau, who've got rear support. They will also get passing fire from the artillery battery as the supporting unit here goes within 9 inches of the guns. I will just check that, but assuming they do, we'll have some defensive fire to. Right, so we'll fire the horse artillery battery first. It is at close range, so they'll do passing fire against the gun, against this attacking battalion. That's an 8. That's pretty effective at close range. That'll be 3 casualties and a discipline test against the attacking units. We'll come back and do the discipline test in a second, and then we'll, in fact, we'll do the discipline test now. That's an 8, so they pass the test, but they are up to 4 casualties, and that's 3 casualties from the combat so far. Alright, now we'll do a defensive volley from the Nassau. They get a combat dice for being a large battalion. See how they do. Nothing from the combat dice. They roll a 6 for a standard volley. That is simply 1 casualty against this attacking Landwehr battalion. That'll be of no effect. Alright, now let's work out how the charges do. Alright, this charge will be a straight roll-off. We only caused one casualty against that attacking battalion. I assume the 3 against the supports count as. Do they count as part of the combat? I'm not sure with passing fire whether you count that to the combat, because the casualties could have only gone on to that attacking battalion. This does make a big difference. I will just go and check the rules for this one. Okay, so this is a little bit complicated, but I think I've got it right. Because we're doing traversing fire, we fire at the supporting unit. That's the most obvious target. We can, because the shot could have gone through and hit the prime attacking target. So we do allocate casualties, but as the prime target is the support, it gets the majority. So I think we cause 3 on that. So actually that only takes 2 casualties, and the extra one will go on the main attacking unit, which will take it up to 4. And the attacking unit itself took 1 casualty, I think, from the defensive fire. It takes the majority of casualties, as there's only 1. It takes 1 from the volley from the Nassau. So that means they've taken 2 casualties in the lead attacking unit. We will also now do the discipline test on the flakking unit. They roll a 9, so they're unaffected, so they can provide support and a full reroll. If they'd been disordered, then their support would have been at -1. Alright, so now let's roll the combat result. This will actually be at +1 to the French, because we did cause 2 casualties as a result of the incoming fire on the lead battalion. Pretty good, we got a double 6, so that will be a destiny test for the Prussians. And the Prussians win by 12 to 9. It's +1 to the French, that makes it 12 to 10. So the Prussians have won by 2, and we will have to roll a destiny result. Yeah, and in terms of rerolls, as the Prussians rolled a double 6 and have got a destiny test, they are not going for a reroll on any of their dice, and the French, getting a 5 and a 4, again don't have an obvious candidate for a reroll. So we'll stick on that result. Let's roll the destiny test. Charlie, do you want to roll the destiny test, or shall I? Okay, Charlie, you roll a 6. Yeah, recover 1 casualty, so you go back down to 3, which is be helpful for the melee phase, given you're already meleeing with Elan. So that's the end of the charges for the Prussians, I think. No charges for the French. We did think about charging with the Berg infantry against that square, which would be an inviting target, but I think the counter thrust by these 3 Prussian columns would be devastating, so we're not going to do that. So it's now on to normal movement for the Prussians, and then the French will do those. Right, Charlie's opening up with his battery again, targeting the Berg infantry down here. You get a bonus casualty dice because they're in column. A 7, you don't get anything from the casualty dice. That goes down to a 6 because of the cover. That's 1 more casualty, taking them up to 4. So they will now count as conscripts and then bounce through against the cavalry. Yep, they are now on 6 casualties, so they're not in an overly healthy state. The other Berg infantry are on 2, and the Nassau are on 3 and 2 casualties.
Okay, so
your skirmishers can fire across the river. You get 1 shot because the Berg are in cover. No, nothing, and you've got 2 shots down here. At the, well, or at the guns, up to you. Yeah. Casualty on the guns, they're up to 5, so they've lost their ability to artillery assault and will probably have to pull back soon. I think that's the end of your firing. Nothing, yeah, we will fire. Our guns down here did passing fire as you charged up here. We did cause 3 casualties on this battalion here, Charlie, but not enough to break their charge or to falter them. So there will be no firing for the Confederation forces this turn. We move on to hand-to-hand combat as you go in and see if the Landwehr can break the Nassau. Right, let's roll this off. Both get 6 dice. I lose 1 for being unformed, but I gain 1 for being a large unit. What have you got there, Charlie?
3.
Let's have a look. Well, you need 4s, not 3s.
2.
2, and I've caused 2, so that's a draw. Let's mark up 2 casualties each.
You can choose to go again.
Yeah, its defender chooses first, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I now lose a dice out of this pool, as do you, because we're both on 4 casualties, or more than 4 casualties. I'm going to go again. 5 dice.
You lose another one because we're both the same morale grade now.
You're right.
So, let's go.
So I'm on 4. How are you on? 5, because you've still got a LAN. Oh. Well, I might think again now. I've got less dice.
still have a good chance. I do have 7 casualties.
Yes, but no, you've only got 5, haven't you?
Oh, no, I'll have more. I thought I did more. You might as well carry on.
I'm just going to have a think about this. I'll be back. Charlie was trying to encourage me to stay in the fight, but I decided to pull back for better or worse. So the Landwehr have continued to push on this flank, and both units of Nassau are now unformed as the front battalion had to push back into the other battalion to drive them out of the way and allow them to do their retire. All right, that's it for turn 10. We go on to turn 11 and we'll roll for ADC. All right, so the French have gained initiative this turn and all their brigades are active. Unfortunately for the Prussians, they are not active this turn, otherwise they could charge into the unformed Nassau, but at least they'll get a chance to reform their lines. All right, let's do our moves. We start with any charges from the French and then we'll be on to normal movement. Okay, so the French Lancers have charged again against the Prussian Landwehr that had come out of square last turn. They are in column, so this isn't a guaranteed charge, and Charlie did cause a casualty as I charged. So this is a straight +1 for the French cavalry. Charlie has rolled a 9 for the Prussians. We roll a 2 for the French. That is terrible. So cavalry versus infantry, minus 6, isn't it? I take 1d3 casualties and retreat. I take 1 more casualty and my cavalry are thrown back by the resolute Landwehr.
And risks general. You attached your general.
I did, didn't I? And I got a retreat result.
Your combat, it doesn't matter, it needs to be a 10 or 3.
At 8, I'm fine. Okay, so they retreat. Charlie's Landwehr stand. We'll start with normal firing. We've reformed my infantry battalion here. This will be an inferior volley. We roll a 7 for an inferior volley, which is 1 casualty on the attacking battalion, Charlie. Yeah, I think that's them. Yeah, the one in the rear has not taken many casualties. I think that one is actually on them. All right.
That was there last
Yeah, I know, but they took 3 casualties from the cannon, so I think it was just sitting in the wrong place. All right, I'm going to fire my guns into the flank of that battalion. You will get protected by your skirmish screen. This will be at close range. 2, that's not very good. A 4, that's pretty terrible. That goes down to a 3, so that's a fatigue casualty on me. That is a terrible result. I really hoped to be doing better than that. I'm then going to do an inferior volley from my Berg infantry. They're going to open up against your regulars that are crossing the river. We roll an 8. They did move, so that's an inferior volley. That is 2 casualties against the front battalion crossing the river.
It was cocked.
I think it was fine. It was flat enough, Charlie. And then the other one against the Landwehr is a 9. That's also an inferior volley. That is 2 casualties and a discipline test on the Landwehr. I think it might be at -1.
We've got no casualties.
Okay. Let's mark those casualties up and then we'll return with the Prussian fire. Okay, Charlie's 2 columns opening up against the Nassau line. These will be both inferior volleys at half effect, but there are 2 battalions that can fire. So yeah, two blue dice, 2 black dice perhaps. Let's see what we get on the blues.
7 and 10.
Okay, 7 and 10, that's not too bad. I think the 7 will be nothing. Yeah, the 7 is 1 casualty, so at half effect that's nothing. But the 10 is 3 casualties, so that'll be 1 more casualty and a discipline test. This will be a discipline test at -1, because that's now 6 casualties. And we get a 7, so there you go. Unformed again, a good target for a subsequent charge by the Landwehr. Good result for Charlie there. All right, you're going to fire your 2 skirmishers at the artillery. Unfortunately, nothing. Then you've got your artillery battery.
Yep, into them.
Okie doke. Wow, that's good. That's an 11. That's going to be at effective range, I think. You're right. Effective range, and 11 is, that'll go down to a 10. Yep, so that's still 3 casualties and a discipline test. I think that might be their first 3 casualties, is it?
No, it's not.
What are they on now?
7.
Oh, God, not in a good state. They passed their discipline test, though, with a roll of a 10.
1 dice.
Okay. Yep, another casualty. Wow, that's good. Okay, and then your 2 columns can both fire. Okay, you're going to fire that one at the Berg again. Okay, this will be at half effect. No, that'll be nothing. And the other one against the other battalion.
9.
A 9, another good roll. That's going to be at effective range, isn't it? Sorry, that's a Landwehr, so that's an inferior volley. It was a 9, was it, Charlie?
Yeah.
So that becomes an 8. That's 2 casualties, but no discipline test. That's all your firing. Crikey, the firing is proving pretty effective. All right, on we go with turn 11, getting to the crunch. Right, Charlie's charged in with another infantry battalion here. Are you doing anything with the infantry battalions facing the Berg as well, Charlie? Any charges over there?
Let's get to the river and then go in.
Okay, so you're going to try and charge?
No, not yet. With them. Next turn.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll see if I've got any charges to do myself, which I haven't. All right, let's do charge results. So I will do passing fire with my artillery battery first. Mainly thanks to the passing fire from the artillery, which caused heavy casualties on the Landwehr. The 2 attacking battalions have been thrown back and were unable to charge home against the disordered Nassau. Over here, we've charged in with the reserves and the Landwehr. Let's see how they do. We've got some defensive volleys to do first. Firstly, by the Berg infantry here. This will be at -2, and it'll be inferior volley as they open up against the attacking reservists. Oh, another good roll though. They roll a 9 for an inferior volley. At -2 is only 1 casualty though, so it won't stop at that assault. And then we'll do the fire over here. We've only got 2 casualties, so this will be a standard volley against the charging Landwehr, and 8 is 3 casualties against the Landwehr. That'll make that charge harder to pull off. Okay, so against the odds, the Landwehr have charged home. They had a -3 modifier, but that takes it down to a 6 against a 3. So they have won by 3. They will take the ground and throw the Berg back, and the Berg take 1d3 casualties. Let's see how many they take. They take 3 casualties and are thrown back. They have to retire. Right, on the second assault down here, it's actually -2 to the French because the Berg have taken 8 casualties. Again, the Prussians do well. 10, 11, 12 against 6. They win by 6. So I think that's a breakthrough. Victory to the attacker. The Berg take d6 casualties. So they take 2 more casualties. So they go up to 10. And they break, and the reservists take the ground. Right, where are we? Final turn 12. So the Westphalian Landwehr attack on the left. Still reasonable shape, so a couple of units unformed, but still not too many casualties, possibly a chance of one more attack against the line of the Nassau infantry here. In the centre left, not good news. Both Berg battalions have had to retire and are both unformed, having gone back through their own cavalry, and actually both units of cavalry should be unformed as the infantry fled back through them as they were within 6 inches. All right, and then the Prussian Reserve Brigade is taking up the assault, supported by 1 of the Landwehr battalions, and is making good progress. Let's see what happens in turn 12, but the Prussians have certainly crossed the river. All right, closing action of the game. Nothing really will go on turn 12 on this flank. All of the French cavalry is unformed. It will simply reform itself, as will the Berg infantry. The French battery down here will pull back on its movement phase as it's on 6 casualties, and it will not want to cause a falter test. The final event of the game in reality will be the charge by the last 2 Landwehr battalions into this Nassau line. Let's see what the defensive fire is like. They have taken 6 casualties, so this will be a -1. So we roll a 6 with no bonus casualties. Won't do too much against this attacking Landwehr battalion. Okay, final assault to the French will be, sorry, to the Prussians will be at +3 to the Prussians as the Nassau are unformed. Nassau do well this time, so they get an 8, that goes down to a 3, so they're on a 5. So the Landwehr win by 1. They will get through to a melee, and melee with a Lan. The Nassau will continue to melee unformed. Right. Prussians going in with a fresh battalion have certainly the advantage in this combat, and they roll extremely well. That's 4. 5 casualties against the French. French only cause 3. That will be a rout result on the Nassau, and the Prussian Landwehr gets to take the ground. So here we go. This is pretty much the conclusion of the game. So the French are still on the table, but as I mentioned, we've taken heavy damage in a large number of the units. So the cavalry are in a position to probably hold off the Prussian pursuit, allowing the remaining French infantry forces to withdraw off table. These 2 Berg battalions have taken 10 and 5 casualties, but they've certainly been pushed back from the river line and have no chance of reoccupying their defensive position. This artillery battery pulled back this turn, or will pull back this turn, having taken 6 casualties and being worried about the Prussian skirmishers, which will be able to pick them off. The cavalry themselves taken fairly heavy casualties. Certainly the right-hand Lancer battalion has taken 6. Over here we've still got 1 Nassau battalion holding, but this Landwehr brigade has done, or regiment has done a good job of breaking the other one and pushing back. So there you go, a good game. I enjoyed this one. An interesting combination of a small amount of Confederation forces with a large cavalry reserve. It proved, once the Prussians got into column rather than line, it proved just how difficult it is for even Lancers to break those break those units when they're at high morale and low casualties. So just one Prussian battalion swept away by cavalry charges in the game. And down here the Landwehr again did well. Well, anyway, hope you enjoyed the game, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.